The Dutch Grand Prix was one of the best Formula One races I've ever watched. It was a combination of both wet and dry weather racing, something that brought more action to the race. Teams that made the right calls during the race reaped big, while those that made the wrong calls ended up on the losing end. Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari are the teams that were hit the hardest because of poor race strategies. Ferrari and Mercedes have been severely criticised for their huge mistakes during the race. Which mistakes did the teams make, and how did they affect their performance? Stay tuned as we dig deeper into today's topic. The Dutch Grand Prix provided a perfect platform for Max Verstappen and his Red Bull team to continue their dominance this season. Despite all the chaos caused by rain during the race, Verstappen won the race, making it his 9th win in a row and equaling Sebastian Vettel's record for most consecutive race wins in Formula One. We have to give credit to Red Bull for making the right calls for Verstappen in Zandvoort. However, the same cannot be said for their second driver, Sergio Perez. Well, we'll take a detailed look at that later in the video. For now, let's look at how Ferrari had another Ferrari moment at the Dutch Grand Prix. Ferrari's star driver Charles Leclerc crashed out of Saturday's Q3 qualifying session for the Dutch Grand Prix, which left him 9th on the grid. This was frustrating for Leclerc and the Ferrari fans, but at least he gave us one of those Kimi and Alonso moments when he watched the rest of the session from a trackside camping chair. Sunday's race was no better for the Monegasque driver as he collected his 3rd DNF of the season. Rain started falling on the track during the first lap of the race, prompting a flurry of pit stop gambles. Leclerc made contact with Oscar Piastri's MCL 60 as the two battled for a position on lap 1 of the race as the rain fell on the track. Charles then decided to pit for intermediate tyres at the end of the lap because of the rain, only to find the mechanics unprepared for a pit stop. The Ferrari pit crew was seen standing at the pits with no tyres in sight. I even thought that they wanted to put Leclerc on a set of John Cena's instead of Inter's. This pit stop made Leclerc lose a couple of seconds, despite it being a good decision. This caused F1 fans to blast Ferrari on social media, while others wasted no time coming up with memes ridiculing the team's pit stops. However, Charles later explained what had happened during the pit stop, saying, "Coming into the last corner, I saw there was a lot of rain, so I decided to stop at the last minute. We lost a little bit of time at the pit stop, but overall it was a good operation for us because we gained more than what we lost." Leclerc obviously caught the mechanics unaware, since he only let the team know that he was pitting when he was already in the pit lane. The team definitely needs to improve communication between the drivers and their race engineers, something that Leclerc acknowledged. "We just need to understand how we could have optimized a bit better, having the guys ready early on," Leclerc said. With the Ferrari driver on Inters, the right tyre choice at that moment, and a good number of drivers still on slicks, Leclerc was expected to find his way to the top. However, this wasn't the case, as he ended up lacking pace and falling to the back of the grid. But why? Leclerc's SF23 had sustained front wing damage when he made contact with Piastri. The damaged wing wasn't changed until his second pit stop, and by that time, it had already caused further damage to the floor. Leclerc carried on with this damage, with the hope that rain would create a chance to score some points, but the car lost so much downforce that he retired the car on lap 41 after being demoted to 16th by AlphaTauri's rookie driver, Liam Lawson. Already at the first lap when we had the damage, I could feel much more than the guys were telling me on the radio. Initially it was 5 to 10 points of downforce, was what I've been told, but obviously we realised it was more than 60, and more than 60 is a different category. After that, after the first lap, it was all uphill. Leclerc said after the race. His teammate Carlos Sainz, on the other hand, managed to at least salvage some points for the Maranello team with his P5 finish. Sainz said that the team had to be proud of his result because it was a good result, considering they didn't have the pace to fight for a podium finish. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton started the race at P13 and finished at P6. His teammate George Russell, on the other hand, had a disappointing race as he started the race at P3, but ended up finishing the race at P17. The team would have gotten better results were it not for their poorly timed pit stop calls. They underestimated the intensity of the rain early in the race and decided to stay out for too long on slicks. This hampered Hamilton's recovery from P13 and made Russell go from fighting for a podium finish to struggling to just finish the race. Russell then got a puncture that dealt the final blow to his race after colliding with Lando Norris towards the end of the race. He later expressed his disappointment after the race, saying, "It is a bit of a shame of an afternoon. We had such a fast car today, but the decisions and weather went against us." He also explained why they did not pit early in the race. "We were expecting the rain to stay for 1 or 2 minutes, and it stayed for 10 minutes. It was ready for intermediate tyres, but I thought I could brave it out for a lap or 2 more if it was only 1 or 2 more minutes, but it wasn't," Russell said. Hamilton was one of the last drivers to pit for intermediate tyres early in the race, and this saw him fall down the order to P18. He, however, recovered to the point of being very close to a top 5 finish, but he just wouldn't find a way past Sainz. He later admitted that the team made the wrong call, but was satisfied with the recovery. "I was the only one on the medium tyre, and I wanted to be offset to the people around me, not everyone on the grid. That rain came, and as a team we made the wrong decision. Ultimately, it was the team's call. We paid the price for that. We came out last, and after that we kept chasing, head down. Every time I had to pit, I came out behind and kept chasing. I was really happy when I got past the McLaren, for example, which isn't easy to do on this track. I was quicker than Sainz at the end. I just needed DRS," Hamilton said. He even claimed that Mercedes had the pace to challenge Max if they had made the right calls. "Today I had the pace. In those conditions, if we made the right calls, I could have challenged the top 2. We would have challenged Max, particularly when we got to the dry. Pace-wise, we weren't terribly far off. I'm not saying we would have beat them, but I think we would have been happy. It's still nice if you think that way," Hamilton said. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff also admitted that they had made poor strategy calls during the race. Here is what he said: "I think we stayed out catastrophically too long. We got it completely wrong, and it is annoying because the car had a real pace. From there on, it was just recovering as good as we could." Toto also acknowledged that Lewis and George would have performed better were it not for the team's mistakes. "We saw at the end on the intermediates, George had Max's pace, and Lewis was very strong behind Sainz. He could have been much further ahead," Wolff said. Toto did not point fingers at anyone in the team for the mistakes. Instead, he said that the whole team was responsible and that they would review it thoroughly. "The situation is never one person or one department. It is the communications between driver, pit wall, strategy, weather, and then all of us taking decisions. That was absolutely subpar from all of us, and that includes me," Wolff said. Max may have won the race, but Perez had a genuine advantage of a couple of seconds over him when he pitted first on lap 1 as the rain fell, while Max stayed out on slicks. However, when the rain ended and the drivers started to pit for slicks, Red Bull called Max to pit first instead of Perez, who was the race leader. This led to Perez emerging from the pits behind Max, who had already taken the lead. Perez appeared confused on team radio when he came back out in second. "Did Max undercut us?" he asked, bewildered. This raised eyebrows among the fans, but Christian Horner explained why they had done that, saying, "Had we pitted Checo first, they, Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly, would have both undercut Max, so we would have gone from a net 1-2 to a net 1-4. So we pitted Max first, with the risk that he'd undercut Checo, but we would end up as a team first and a second. It was a no-brainer." Perez did not appear furious after the race, but he still didn't have an explanation for why the team had pitted them in that order. Now the biggest question is, would they have done the same had the positions been reversed? Personally, I don't think so. What about you? Anyway, Perez ended up receiving a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and despite finishing third, he was demoted to 4th place. So the team eventually ended up with the 1-4 finish that they were avoiding. That's it for today, guys. Award us with a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for more amazing F1 content. Thanks for watching.